So I was shelving books today and I found one of my new favorite nonfiction books on the shelf. And I think whenever one of your favorite books shows up on the shelf, it's a sign that maybe you should give it another look. So this came out in 2019, so it's still pretty new, but it was still from last year. And this is called Moth. I'm trying to figure out where that reflection is best. Moth. It is by Isabel Thomas, Daniel Egnéus, and it is an evolution story. I should say, before I get started, Moth is actually a nonfiction book. It lives in the 595 area, which in the Dewey Decimal System means it's a factual book about animals. This is the story of light and dark, of change and adaptation, of survival and hope. It starts with a little moth. A shiny cocoon wiggled and jiggled in the moonlight. Do you see the cocoon? Are these the cocoon? Normally I see cocoons hanging from trees, but maybe these ones are on the ground? Let's see. A shiny cocoon wiggled and jiggled in the moonlight. Something was waking up from a long winter's sleep. Oh, those were the cocoons. Look, 6 little legs uncurled, 2 tiny antennae unfurled, and 4 salt and pepper wings stretched and quivered in the breeze. So you can see the antenna, how he senses things, right? He's got one big wing on top, a little one underneath, and on the other side, another big one, another small one. And I think his legs are on the other side of him. But hungry predators were nearby. Quickly, the moth flew away. The peppered moth joined other peppered moths. Most had speckled, freckled wings. You can see some are darker, some have more white on them, but they all have that kind of black and white freckling. Whoa, all of those. So like I said, some have dark patches with lighter patches, some are pretty dark all around, some are very white all around, but sometimes a peppered moth was born with wings as dark as charcoal. What color do you think that is? Charcoal. Yeah, it's all black. The moths fluttered and fluttered, looped the loop all night long. They skittered and swooped. Then they looked for food and tried not to get eaten themselves. Oh no, a bat! I bet a bat would really like to eat a moth. When the sun rose, the peppered moths dozed on the lichen-covered branches. Silent, still, they hid. Someone else was looking for food. So, which one was the best hidden? Who would survive? If some of the moths were more light than dark, some of them more dark than light, which one do you think the birds can see better? Oh, you're right, it's the all black one. Silent, still, the speckled moths seemed to disappear, but black charcoal wings were easy to spot on the pale branches. So all of the moths that were a little black and a little white, they blended in with the trees, but the ones who were all black, they stood out. Dark colored moths made a feast for hungry chicks. The speckled freckled moths had the best camouflage. Have you ever seen camouflage? A lot of times it's different colors of green so people can blend in with the trees. But animals have camouflage too, right? So these speckled ones had the best camouflage. Their salt and pepper wings kept them safe from hungry eyes. Then they laid eggs of their own. So the new moths had salt and pepper wings too. Every year, the same thing happened. Hundreds of tiny eggs hatched. The moths with the best camouflage survived long enough to have offspring and pass on their salt and pepper wings. So if the mom and dad moth had salt and pepper wings and they hid really well, they could have more babies because they were still alive. That is why most peppered moths were speckled and freckled. But then the world began to change. So you see, instead of forests, we're starting to have houses, factories, and smokestacks. And that means more pollution in the world. People built factories and burned coal to power magnificent machines. They made steam trains to take things here, there, and everywhere. Chimneys filled the air with smoke and soot. So if you've ever been around a bonfire or anything, you know that smoke rises off of fires. So the smoke from the factories came up the chimneys and out the top. And soot is little itty bitty particles of burnt stuff that can land on things. And what color is soot? Black. Pollution stained the clouds and blackened the branches where peppered moths slept. A bird went hunting for a snack. If all those tree branches are a lot darker, now which moths were disguised? Which ones would survive? Uh-oh. Is this dark moth going to blend in? Or is this salt and pepper moth going to blend in? Which one can you see better? Now, the darkest moths had the best camouflage. Their charcoal-colored wings kept them safe from hungry eyes. Now they lived long enough to lay eggs of their own. Eating one of those salt and pepper ones. And so their wing color passed on to their offspring. And their offspring's offspring. 50 years later, there were just as many peppered moths as ever, but most were charcoal colored. The speckled freckled moths were rare. So you see more and more dark with just a little bit of freckles. The moths adapted to the changes in the world. But that is not how the story ends. Next time you scramble through a forest or run through a backyard, be silent. Be still. Look closely at the trees. You might spot a moth with wings as dark as charcoal, or a moth with speckled, freckled wings. Here, there's one hiding on that tree. Because people decided to clean up the air. They burned less coal and found new ways to power machines. Year by year by year, cities grew greener, the air all around became cleaner, and the trees shed their sooty bark. So the new trees didn't have that layer of black soot on them anymore. They were getting clean again. What do you think that means for the moths? Now, The speckled freckled moths are camouflaged once more and live long enough to pass on their salt and pepper wings to their offspring. Today, both colors of moth find places to hide and survive. They are still telling their story of light and dark, of change and adaptation, of survival and hope. And that is the end. It has a little bit of information at the end, the story of the peppered moth. You see the light form, the dark form, and that is the end. Thank you for listening to me today. That's a really cool example about how animals can change in really a quick amount of time, because bugs don't live as long, so they can go through more and more generations and adapt to the world around them. Thanks for listening to me. As always, maybe give some nonfiction a chance. There are way cooler books in nonfiction than you would expect. And if you ever need any recommendations, let me know. Thank you.